another session coming right now. Shachar from Baz is going to talk about building verification layer for agentic coding, which sounds like something I needed today. So I will be listening very attentively to this. Shachar, please welcome Shachar to the stage. Thank you.
I'm going to start with a question that is haunting me day by day and probably through the whole night when I didn't sleep before this talk. It's 2026. Why are AI code reviews and code reviews are still a bottleneck in engineering teams? I'll start with introducing myself. My name is Shachar, quite hard to pronounce in English, sorry about that. VP Product in Baz, and the mission of building the best and the most precise AI code review agent in the market. When I'm not doing product management, I'm surfing on waves, so that's where I am. I'm based in Tel Aviv, so when I'm not in the office, I'm in the sea. I'm a product manager geek. I really love dealing with product management. I'm doing it for the last decade. And I think the last year, 2 years are the most exciting times to be a product manager and a builder. So I hope you're sharing the same passion, and this is what I'm going to talk about during this conversation. Right now, I'm based in Tel Aviv, and I'm very grateful to be here. I think a couple of weeks ago, it seems that the odds to take a flight from Tel Aviv to London will be very low. So thank you for hosting me here, and thank you for spending your morning with me. I'm planning to relocate and establish a new site for our company in San Francisco. So if someone is here from the Bay Area and would love to connect, will make my time there better, and I would love to be in touch. So back to the question that I started with. I'm meeting dozens of engineering teams on a weekly basis from all over the world and from different sizes, from startups that are 5 to 10 people to enterprise teams that have 1,000, 2,000 developers. And I hear the same explanation again and again, that code review became a bottleneck. And as a good product manager, I'm trying to understand why this is happening in those kind of discovery calls. Why, even though we're using the best coding agents in the world, the most costly and expensive models available, we are still hitting the point where human beings need to review code, where engineering managers explain that they have 5 times or 3 times more PRs that are waiting to be merged, but nothing is happening, and velocity is actually becoming slower than faster. One of the main themes that repeated in those conversations was the matter of trust. People explained that they don't really rely on the agent to close the feedback loop. A lot of the users told us that the problem that they had is they have specs, and they see that the coding agent multiple times just ignores most of the specs part of it, or when they see in the end the feature that was implemented, it's not really how they intended it to look like. So as a product manager, when you hear that kind of pain, you decide, okay, this is going to be my mission. I hear this pain that nobody else is solving, and I'm going to solve it. And what you're going to see in this session is the journey that we did to build the tools and the context to give coding agents the ability to really verify that your feature was implemented as you asked. If you don't believe this issue, I'm going to show it from an example from my day-to-day life. So I'm a product manager. I design skills, I design features, I decide what the company is going to implement. And this is an example for a ticket that we were supposed to implement as part of the sprint. We have, as part of our product, the ability to give our customers the option to integrate their ticketing system. It can be Jira, Linear, and Fiber is one of them. Not a lot of people are using it, and not a lot of people are familiar with it, but that was one of the features that we had to complete. And part of what we wanted to do is to add this to the onboarding flow of the product. So when a user is onboarding to Baz, it will have the option to integrate which of the ticketing systems available that they have. And because I'm reviewing every product, every feature that is being released, I asked to make sure that the same bug that happened when we integrated another ticketing system won't repeat again. I literally added a recording from a previous time when we added another integration where the continue button was overlapping the new integration that was added. A couple of days later, the developer sent me a Slack message telling me, hey, I just completed that feature. Here's the link to a preview environment. Please review it. Guess what? The continue button is exactly where I asked him not to put it. Guys, like, I couldn't be more explicit than that. And I'm showing this because this is a really simple example, right? Like, for who of you are taking part in being in an engineering team, product design, this is our day-to-day frustration. We're writing specs, they are very detailed, and we're very happy to deliver them to the engineering teams that we're working with. But unfortunately, when we see the results, it's not as we expected. And you can understand that if this is such a front-end, simple task that gone wrong, what would be the results if we're doing a complex task? So the bottom line is that coding agents that we are using are not focused on verifying features. They are amazing in generating code. And I think one of the themes that is repeated in a lot of the talks here and in other conferences is the fact that it's so easy to build right now. But the way that the coding agents are built, they are focused on generating features. They are not focused in fully extracting all the specs that we have, all the specs that we write, and they're not focused in verifying the feature as it is. And when I say verifying the feature, I'm not meaning verifying the code. For those of you who are working in a team and you have like your preview environment, your staging, your databases, your other features that are connected to the specific feature that you're working with, you understand that comparing code to code isn't the answer. You need to deploy the feature in your staging environment and really see how it looks like. The good news is we don't need to create any data that nobody has. We have specs. Specs are there, and if you're a good team and it's a really good practice, you focus on writing specs. So this is my dream as a product manager. This is the overview of the architecture that I started to create together with my CTO. I'm going to create an agent that is called Spec Reviewer. It's going to have access to specs. Specs will be saved in a ticketing system. It can be Jira. It can be linear. It can be Monday.com, Notion. It can be on GitHub. It will be able to access designs. That is something that is not so standard. To visual assets in the designs, and it will be able to access the feature that is deployed in staging environment or in preview environment and verify it. The way I see it is that agent is able to extract the requirements, all of them, and go through every requirement that are in the specs and validate if they were really implemented or not. I'm thinking about an agent that is navigating through different types, impersonating to different roles into the product, and just going and clicking and trying different cases in the product. So as a product manager, I'm already vibe coding. I have access to the best tools, and I'm going to ask Claude what does he think about this idea and if he can implement it. And the answer that I get is this. And this is the moment that I'm very concerned about, right? Like, when my wife tells me this, I'm happy, but when Claude Code tells me this, that's the point where I need to be concerned, and I click enter, and I get this. The reason I'm getting this, it's because it's a very hard task to do. And you can see here, this error shows that the context window just exploded. So what I'm going to show now is how we took this simplistic idea of implementing an agent that is able to extract requirements and verifying them to make it actually work. So this was the first problem. The problem is that one agent just can't do it. One agent can take all the requirements that are in the ticket, all the requirements that are in the specs, all the design aspects that were introduced into the specific feature, and also go and verify them. It just explodes the agent. And by the way, that's probably one of the reasons that your coding agents don't do it. So what was our solution to deal with the crashing sessions? The idea was to divide the task between two different agents. It's also it's another best practice you can use for other agentic tasks. It's dividing it between planning. So we're going to have one agent that is the planner. The planner's role is to extract the requirements from the spec and understand what are going to be the failure cases that I'm going to verify through the verification process. Only one task, to extract requirements. The second agent is going to be the verification agent. The verification agent is going to navigate through different files, through the UI, through the design, and understand if the specific specs that were provided by the planner were met in this feature. Okay, good news. Sessions are running. We're not crashing anymore. But unfortunately, the results that we're getting are horrible. What we understood is that the agents started skipping some of the requirements. We had tickets that included 10 or 12 requirements. Sometimes we had PRDs that included 20 requirements, and the agent just consistently skipped some of them. The second thing that happened was that we noticed that the quality of the verification and the quality of the requirements that were extracted was inconsistent. And we understood that even though we divided the task between two different agents, we understood that it's still too much context for one agent. So this is only going to be the only graph that I'm going to show in this presentation, I promise. This is an illustration of the context problem that we're having in this task. So how the verification agent works. It gets the list from the planner of what is going to be the potential failure scenarios that I'm going to review. And starts with the first requirement from the spec, going into specific files, navigating through them, testing the UI, checking if the requirement that it's supposed to check was implemented or not, defines what would be the verdict, and proceeds to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And you can understand that at this point, when I'm getting to the fifth or the sixth requirement, I'm having loads of context that are irrelevant for that specific task. And that makes the agent just dumber. The way to solve it would be to delegate the task between multiple sub-agents. It's understanding that I can verify each of the sub-requirements in the spec by different agents. So instead of one agent that is checking 10 or 12 or 15 requirements sequentially, I'm going to have 15 or 12 agents that are running in parallel. Each of them is reaching to a specific verdict, and in the end, there's an orchestrator that collects all the verdicts at the end of the process. Great, we're having sessions that are running. We have all the requirements that are extracted and validated. Now we started to notice another problem that is related to the quality of the context. We noticed that the agent is starting to make up requirements that nobody asked him to do. This is like an example from one of the first reports of our spec reviewer. You can see it on GitHub here. For example, you can see here, the agent decided that we need to introduce a new responder command. Like, nobody asked that. The second example is maintaining backward compatibility. This is, again, like something that the product manager, the CTO that designed the specific task, like nobody really had that specific requirement. The reason we understood what's happening here is the fact that we gave the agent only the specs. And what's really interesting here, and I added this GIF from Inception, is the fact that when we gave the agent the tickets, it only understood the specs and the design. It only understood what's going to be the goal. Like, what is the intent in that specific moment? But without to be grounded with the code, it's just not connected to reality. The specs are a snapshot in what we're trying to achieve in this coding task, but the code is how we ground that agent to reality. Two interesting takeaways in that area. One, we understood that if we give the agent the base branch and the base code and not the diff, we're getting better results. Why? This was a really interesting case. We understood that if we're giving it the diff, it's biased to the specific solution that the engineer chooses to implement. But if we give it the base branch before the change, the agent is open-minded to different kinds of approach and is more critical about the solution that was chosen. The second way to improve that kind of results was to scope the agent to understand what it's reviewing right now. So for example, if I'm reviewing a front-end feature, there's no reason to be concerned about back-end issues because I'm just going to create noise that are irrelevant for this specific feature. So the good news is we have sessions that are running, we have requirements that are extracted perfectly, and we're verifying them amazingly. Now we're getting to a point that is the really exciting point of sharing it with our customers that are waiting for this specific feature. And we get to the point where we're starting to plan how the launch of this feature is going to look like. And we get to the point where we're saying, OK, now we need to integrate, we need to let our customers integrate Buzz into their preview environment. So that means that Buzz needs to access multiple URLs, unknown ones. It can be teams that are just giving us access to this URL. And you can understand that that's not a good idea, right? Like clicking on unknown URLs is just like clicking on a phishing link that I'm getting on an SMS on an email, and I'm going to do it 100 times a month. My agent is sitting on our S3 bucket, where our code is where our data is, it's where our customers' data is, it's where our OpenAI credentials are. That's not a good idea to run arbitrary code on my agent. So the way we decided to solve that, and again, this is our personal approach, but I'm going to talk about how you can do it differently. It's using a third-party tool. There's a lot of nonsense people are doing there with coding agents. People are just vibe coding a lot of software right now. And if you're entering an area that you think is a dangerous area related to cybersecurity or vulnerabilities, prefer using a third-party tool instead of developing yourself. This specific solution didn't really impact the results that we generated. It just helped us deal with things that we didn't want to deal with as a DevTools company. In this case, what we implemented and we used together with AWS Agent Core is the ability to run an ephemeral sandbox for every requirement that is being validated. That means that when the agent needs to validate a specific requirement, there will be a sandbox that would be running for that specific requirement with a browser session, checking the specific feature through the preview environment, sending back the verdict to the agent that is in our cloud, and then the agent can understand what was that specific requirement, if it was implemented or not. And this is the dream become true. This is the moment where Spec Reviewer is running on our code. I waited for this moment for close to 6 months. And you can see here multiple sessions that are not human sessions, but agent sessions that are navigating through our UI. You can see here cases where the agent is navigating through dashboards, checking if data integrity when we added different features to the dashboard. You can see cases where the agent is looking for different integrations and trying to integrate and activate a specific integration. You can see the agent trying to subscribe through Stripe. That sometimes breaks, and that's like probably the most frustrating point for you as a product manager when someone tries to pay and the product isn't working. And also trying to subscribe to onboard with a Google account or with SSO. And this is running multiple times, like dozens of times in every PR that we're doing to validate every feature, to ensure regression tests, and to ensure that the features are really implemented as we describe them. The last slide. The key takeaways, or if you want to take this dream and build it by yourself. First of all, it's 2026, and context engineering is still a hard problem. There's a feeling that when you look at what's going on today, this is something, it's so easy to do, right? Like context windows are so big and I have so many tokens, it's just so easy to do it. But the truth is it's not. Complex tasks that are not out of the box from coding agents require a lot of context engineering. And 2 tips that I can give here was 1, dividing between planning and execution, and the other one would be delegating agentic tasks between multiple sub-agents. The second takeaway here is the fact that you have your specs and you have your code. And you don't need other resources except them. And if you combine them together, it's really a gold mine, so you don't need to create more resources to ensure that your agent is running smoothly. And the third takeaway is the one that I talked about earlier. If you identify high-risk areas that you think that can be vulnerable in part of your SDLC or part of your architecture, prefer using third-party proven tools that you can use instead of exposing yourself to security issues. The last takeaway is a personal one for someone that is a builder and a product manager and is part of the startup life. These days can be very frustrating, I think, for someone that is looking at what's happening on Twitter or news can think that there's no way to beat the big companies. Every day, Anthropic or Cursor or Codex release a feature that you're saying like, oh, damn, this is what I'm thinking about. This is going to be the big feature that I was planning to do in next quarter. But the idea is that these big companies are overlooking a lot of cracks that real teams are looking for products to solve them. Spec Reviewer is one of those examples that for me as a product manager, it was mainly to tune in to the pains that I felt in our customers and trying to find the place where coding agents don't really solve it and finding a way to build it. And I think like this would be the best tip that I can give you from this conversation. Look for the gaps that the big coding agents are not able to fill and build your product there. That will probably be the best way for you to beat them. That's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. We have plenty of time for some questions, so we'll spread out and throw your hands in the air like you just don't care, or if you have a question.
Did you say you run regression tests?
Sorry.
That works. Sorry.
Regression tests every time you implement a new feature? So,
yeah.
So you test everything that's already there?
That's right. So what Spec Reviewer does, that was the next part of it. So the first version of it was to ensure that everything that was in the spec was really implemented. So for example, the colors are correct, the resolution is right, that everything that the product manager or the designer and all the states were implemented. But then what customers started asking was, okay, this agent is able to navigate through the UI and ensure that everything is working as expected. Let's also give it like a set of critical flows that I want to ensure that nothing of them is breaking. So for example, when I give this example to every engineer that is coming, I said like, you can do a lot of things. Like if there's something I'm not, like I'm going to remind, like I won't forget forever, is if you're going to break subscription. Because if I'm like one time I just looked at a customer on a screen recording trying to subscribe with like 100 seats and just didn't do it. It was unsuccessful and just like ditched the product. And I said like, okay, I just missed the customer. And this would be something that I would check in every PR from now on, like ensure that is happening. And you can think about your product and your critical flows and ensure that they are all the time intact and nothing is happening to them, even though you're introducing new features. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the talk. My question is about the verification. It could be executed in two ways. You can either run the agentic session, point it at a specification, and from there, with help of Playwright MCP, for example, let the agent to go through the application and verify it. Or you can build a description of the test scenario and then make the agent code this test and then just run this test code like a script and then probably commit it to the code base. So what's your take on the ratio when you resort to one approach, when to another? Yeah, how you make these decisions?
Okay, so it's a good question. The problem that I have with tests is that they test things that nobody really, like, they're not testing real life. like QA teams are sitting and thinking about these imaginary scenarios that not going to happen anytime in your product. And there are plenty of AI coding tools that generate tests. Like here, take like 100, 200, 500 unit tests. And in the end of the day, there is one scenario that you're not thinking about. The idea we chose this specific approach is we wanted to leverage data that is already there. Like I don't want someone to think about scenarios that might happen or might not, and let's use the specs to do that. By the way, the byproduct of this process, and I didn't talk about it, but I heard about it from a lot of our customers, is the fact that when they knew that the specs are used to be to the agents to verify the feature, it encouraged them to write better specs. So it's like renewable energy, right? Like I'm bringing a new tool that improves best practices and improves and encourages product managers and designers to be more specific in the way they write specs. And I think that like if testing was the answer, there wasn't room for this. Thank you.
Hello. Well, thank you for the talk.
Thank you.
Really great. Two small questions. First, you mentioned the sub-agents, so simplifying and splitting in different acceptance criteria to check rather than and give that to different sub-agents. Have you used lighter models for those, given that those are faster and tokens are becoming more and more expensive? So I wanted to understand if you have evaluated that. And the second one is, you mentioned regression testing, which we kind of do also with end-to-end testing, but what about exploratory testing after a release?
So I'll address the first question first. We are using different models. We're specifically using all of them. We're using OpenAI and Anthropic ones for different tasks. For extracting verification, we're using the requirements. We're using a heavy model because it's a big task. The fact that human beings aren't consistent about how they're writing specs, so there will be people that will say, "This is something we talked about on breakfast. Here's the print screen. Good luck." And the other one would write like a really big spec. So you need a model with a big brain that is able to understand what was there and ground it to what really the requirements are. While the verification ones, we used like small agents that just needed to navigate through the product, get to the right section in the product and say like the color is the color, the resolution is the resolution, or the click is working or not. Can you repeat the second question? I just want to make sure that I'm addressing it correctly.
For exploratory testing, so regression testing, we have those core journeys that we want to make them. We want to make sure that we are not regressing on those core functionalities. But what about exploratory testing? Because as we know, every time we do a change, maybe something unrelated will break that might not be in that core journey.
So what would be the example of what would you like to test?
Exploratory testing is just generally the QA. So if you do it manually, QAs just navigate the product in certain functionalities to understand if things are working.
Yeah. So we focus there on where matters and not like all the app. So there will be things that. Like I will not go and test everything in the product. In the end of the day, it's dividing, like putting an agent into work and using tokens and like agentic workflows to do that would be focusing on the 1 or 5% in the product that matters most and not going into every part in the product and doing that. For that, like you can have static testing your code to do that. It's mainly focusing on where matters most and putting the agent there. Like I wouldn't like to cost tens of thousands of dollars for verifying every part in the product and only focusing where I really am needed. Thank you.
And one short one at the front. The question, not the person.
Yeah, sorry, I'm with the light.
Sorry, I'm right.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
I know he said a short one, but how did you make sure that the spec that you gave the agents were actually implemented the way the spec has been written, and because you said it was dropping out at points, right?
Yeah.
The other bit is like a very important one. You said specs plus code is gold mine, and there's an argument here that a lot of us don't care about the code that's been generated. I think that's a bit of a mistake, because if the agents have created spaghetti code, the next time you go and try to either create a new feature or fix a bug, I think you're going to go into this negative spiral, infinite loop, and then end up creating more bugs. So how do you address both of these?
So I have 3 seconds. Can I?
Slightly
We
more
can take it
than
offline. Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you very much.